Since the topic has already been brought up a few times on my channel, and I don't like answering the same question 100 times, I decided to make this video to give my perspective on Mass Effect 3 and in particular its ending. Obviously there are spoilers in this video, so if you don't want to know what will happen, stop watching now. Also, you should probably not read the comments, as they might contain spoilers too. This is the only place on my channel where I'll allow spoilers. Anywhere else, I'll delete spoiler comments. Please note that although I'll discuss some of what happens in the game, I'm deliberately not telling you what any of my choices were. You'll have to watch my eventual Let's Play to find that out. Despite the impression that this channel creates, I'm not really what most people would call a hardcore gamer. I did most of my gaming back in the 90s, and there are only a handful of modern titles that I've played. As such, in all my 30 years, there are only 2 games that I have ever pre-ordered: Dreamfall and Mass Effect 3. What do those 2 games have in common? They both have great stories, with an ending that makes you go, what the hell just happened? Mass Effect 3 really was a great game. It wasn't perfect, but up until the last 10 minutes, I had no major complaints. But the ending was very, very disappointing. And that it follows a game that was otherwise so good just makes it more sour. However, I want to state right here and now that I am not one of the people who say that Mass Effect is now ruined and I will never play it again. All 3 games are great except for the ending, and I will not let a disappointing ending ruin what is otherwise amongst the best sci-fi stories I know. I'm currently still reading the novel Mass Effect Retribution, and I'm still enjoying that too, regardless of ME3's ending. Now, I don't really have any problems with the concept of the ending per se. Sure, it could have been done better, but all of it could have worked if it was handled properly. I'm certainly not looking for a happily ever after ending instead. I just want an ending that makes sense and offers actual closure. The biggest problem with the ending is that it's a betrayal of trust. We were told ever since Mass Effect 1 that our decisions would matter. We were told that this game wouldn't have a bespoke ending for everyone, but that it would be a personal experience. And we were lied to. It's true to some degrees, at least for the game itself, but for the ending it is simply demonstrably false. The final choice given in the ending makes no visible difference. Sure, the potential implications of the choices are vastly different, but we can only infer that. It breaks the fundamental rule of fiction: show, don't tell. And beyond the final choice, nothing you did in the previous 100 hours really seems to make any difference, except as part of your effective military strength, which is an opaque number with an arbitrary effect on the outcome, so that's not a good way to handle all the moral choices we've made. In any narrative, the ending has to follow organically from the event in the story. In an interactive story like Mass Effect, it also has to follow organically from the choices the player has made. Mass Effect 3's ending simply does neither. It comes completely out of the left field and is entirely disconnected from everything else that happened before. We're given a too short, confusing and logically unsound explanation, which Shepard seemingly just accepts despite the entire theme of the trilogy hinting at the opposite. Seriously, why aren't we given a chance to question this kid's assertions? Sure, Shepard is fatigued and injured, but if that stands in the way of the ending making sense, you need to change it. The ending simply was too abstract, too high concept, and too far removed from the very personal issues that Shepard faced throughout the trilogy. As such, there was no emotional connection to the ending at all, unless you count confusion, and for some people anger. It simply wasn't the right way to end something like Mass Effect. Mass Effect isn't 2001: A Space Odyssey. It's not even Ghost in the Shell. Mass Effect is straight up space opera, and the ending wasn't. It's a complete and utter genre shift in the last 10 minutes of the game, which doesn't work. There are myriad theories floating about the ending, everything ranging from the child AI thing simply being a liar, to the whole thing being a hallucination or an indoctrination attempt by Harbinger. There's also speculation that it's all deliberate misdirection and that BioWare will come out with a real ending later. And if that turns out to be true, it was still severely mishandled if you ask me. And in any case, to quote Spock from Star Trek VI, we have no proof, only a theory that happens to fit the facts. It does appear, judging from some very vague messages on Twitter from BioWare staff, that there will be something more to come. There may yet be an epilogue or further explanation, but I'm not expecting it to be a complete reversal like the indoctrination theory would require. The reason for that is that those same tweets also imply that the intent behind the ending was to get you to think about the implications. And again, that's not a bad idea, but it just wasn't done well. People are speculating about the endings not because they're intrigued, but because they're trying to make sense out of a confusing mess, and that is not what they intended. I can't believe that. However, if we are meant to just come up with our own final outcome based on vague descriptions we're given, then it's certainly not beyond my imagination to come up with one where the universe isn't screwed, even if the endings as presented are meant to be literal. For one thing, I believe that the child is just a construct to represent the creators of the Reapers, much like Vigil represents the Protheans in ME1. I don't think it has any real power or literally controls the Reapers. If it did, then it would have no reason to let Shepard choose. He could just order a Reaper to attack them and they'd all be dead. I also think that the creators of the Reapers themselves may have been synthetic. These synthetics destroyed their creators, came to regret it, and then assumed that all other synthetics would follow that same pattern. They then instituted the cycle to prevent the pattern from repeating, preserving organic life in Reaper form. Because of their synthetic nature, these beings couldn't understand why that form of continuation is so reprehensible to organics, or why their reasoning is inherently flawed. I also choose to believe that the galaxy is not doomed by the destruction of the relays. For one thing, there's a team of super smart scientists still assembled from the Crucible project. They might figure something out. Also, all three endings make it possible to use Reaper-Tech to try and solve the problem. Either it can be salvaged if you choose to destroy them, or the Reapers could help in the control and synthesis endings. Either way, everyone being stranded and dying is not necessarily the only possible outcome, and unless I'm given evidence to the contrary, I'm not going to assume that that's what happens. I can't really explain the Normandy crash landing though. That's really the biggest problem of the entire ending, particularly how your crew managed to get back on board, considering they were all with you on Earth just a few minutes earlier. It might work if the timescale of the ending is different than what the cutscene implies, but I don't know. I definitely can't explain how they managed to crash on a garden world against astronomical odds, or how any of them would survive there for very long. However, this is one of the things that the Twitter feeds seem to indicate may be revealed later, so there's still hope. The Stargazer scene after the credits is also pretty confusing, but it might just be so far into the future that it doesn't really matter. One thing that's pretty cool though, is that the Stargazer is voiced by Buzz Aldrin. Yes, the Buzz Aldrin, the second man to walk on the moon. Too bad that's the only cool thing about it. All of this is just my opinion and pure speculation though. I can't prove any of it, and it's pretty likely I'll change my mind about some of it, even if no further info is forthcoming from BioWare. Hopefully by the time I make my Let's Play and I have to give my final thoughts at the end, as I always do, things will be more clear. I want to stress again that despite this, I still like Mass Effect. I will still play it and enjoy it, and I want to encourage all of you not to let 10 minutes of crap spoil 100 hours of gold. Mass Effect simply deserves better than that from its fans. It deserves better from its creators too, but that's not something we can directly control. In the end, I would love it if BioWare fixed this, but if they don't, I won't let it spoil something that I enjoyed so much, and I hope you will do the same.